Greetings, folks, and welcome to today's show. We want to talk about a subject that's, well, it's kind of important to everyone, and we see the dark side of it on the news every day. And our subject today is going to be the question of the justice system, and we're not talking about the justice system in Coffee County, Manchester, or Tullahoma, but we're trying to look at it from a national perspective, because if there's going to be any reform, it'd have to be all over the country. The problem is that we incarcerate 3 times as many people as anybody else in the world, and we have 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prisoners. So there would seem to be something wrong with that, and it has very serious cost implications too, which we'll talk a little about. So anyway, that's our subject for today, and we have invited Mickey Layne, the District Attorney General. Even though his first expertise is in the local scene, I'm sure he can give us an equally valid viewpoint on the total scene. So. Thanks very much for taking time to join us.
Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you. Let's start off a little bit. Even though I think you've been in this scene for quite a few years, you kind of stay out of the headlines, and I'm not sure how much people know about you. Tell us a little bit about Mickey.
Well, I was born out in the country next to the mountains in Hillsboro, right outside of Hillsboro. Dr. Horace Farrer delivered me on the same day the Marines landed on Iwo Jima, February 19th, 1945, and grew up in the country. Graduated from high school here in Manchester and University of Tennessee undergraduate and law school. When I graduated from law school in '71, I was a law clerk to a federal judge in Nashville, came back to Manchester in '74 and practiced law for some 6 months, became assistant DA March 1st of '75.
Was that full time?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And back then we had 2 full-time assistant DAs for 4 counties. Coffee, Warren, DeKalb, and Van Buren.
Your district covered 4 counties.
It did at that time.
Right. Okay.
And I think we had more free time back then than we do now. There are so many more cases that we have now. I have 6 assistant DAs, and Ken Shelton is one of mine, and he was with me in the old days, and he says he's much busier now on a staff of 6 assistants than he was in the old days when we had 2 or 3, in his case, assistants for 4 counties.
So now you have more for fewer.
Absolutely,
fewer
and I can't explain it, but we're in court every day here in Manchester.
I think that's our subject.
Yeah, I don't know what has happened. In the last 2 years, we've had 10 murder victims, and that's just unheard of. Typically, we would go a year with either no murders or 1 murder. If you had 2 murders a year, that was a bad year.
Yeah.
Became a district attorney April 2nd of 1990. Governor Ned McWhorter appointed me after the former DA Buck Ramsey resigned to go into private practice. Been elected 3 times since then.
How about family?
Family, I have 3 sons. One is a Navy JAG officer in D.C. Another is got his master's in civil engineering. He works at automotive industry in Manchester. My youngest son attends MTSU. I have 4 stepdaughters and 5 grandchildren. So I have a busy life at work and at home. But you know, we were talking before we came on, and when I grew up, we would lounge around at night. We would visit the cousins, and we would sit under a tree and look at the skies, and the neighbors would visit. We'd sit on the porch. Now I don't have any free time.
I'm not sure who the neighbors are either. Beyond next door.
I was telling Mr. Currington that when I grew up out in the country, our house burnt down in 1951, and the entire community pitched in and built it back for us. And now I go and visit there where I grew up, and people do not know who their neighbors are. The world has changed since I was a little boy.
Very much so. Okay, very good. Well, and out of all that, you've only got one lawyer coming along, huh? The
yes.
one in the, who's the
Michael.
Navy.
Michael is he works on the staff of an admiral in Washington D.C. at the Washington Naval Yard.
Okay.
Works long hours.
Yeah.
But he's a former Marine, and he's been very successful.
Good.
He's Charles Michael Layne Jr.
Yeah,
maybe that's why he followed.
He's a career JAG.
Probably so. Probably so.
Navy?
Navy JAG. He's been all over the world. East Africa. I spent 2.5 years at Pearl Harbor, Groton, Connecticut, Colts Neck, New Jersey. Now he's at the Washington Naval Yard.
Yeah.
And he's been all over the world.
That's interesting. The minister of a church that we belong to in the Washington area was a retired admiral. He had been chief of JAG for a number of years, and also a minister. Well, folks, with that, let's take a short commercial break, and we'll get back into business.
The highest standard of trust offers a sense of safety and comfort. It's established over time. You know when you see it. You know when you feel it. There's a standard of trust in healthcare. It's the Joint Commission Gold Seal of Approval. In 2003, Life Care Center of Tullahoma voluntarily achieved this accreditation and maintains it still today. Life Care, meeting a higher standard because residents matter most.
This is J.D. Oliver here at the Smokehouse on Monteagle Mountain. My sisters Betsy, Nancy, and I'd like to thank you for supporting our family business for over 50 years.
Hello, this is Stella Parton, and I am standing here right in the middle of Jim Oliver's Smokehouse restaurant. But you need to come in here. We just got through doing a show. We also have a music scene going on here, and I want to invite you to come down because it is your mountain destination. Music on the Mountain in Monteagle, Tennessee.
My name's Betsy Oliver. I'm the kitchen manager here. We serve a lot of ribs and barbecue and fried chicken.
Hey, this is Sean Mayer, and I just want to let everybody know to stop in at the Smokehouse if you're ever on your way to Chattanooga or Nashville. They not only have a great gift shop, awesome food, great entertainment on Saturday nights, but beautiful cabins to stay in. Check it out.
Make the Smokehouse your mountain getaway destination. Stay in one of our 84 lodge rooms and 20 timber frame log cabins. Look around our trading posts and eat in our delicious restaurant. Enjoy music on the mountain every Saturday night featuring the best of Nashville. Our family hopes to see you this year at Jim Oliver Smokehouse.
We're back, folks, and we're talking today with District Attorney General Mickey Layne, who has Coffee County in particular, and they have an organization. The state has an organization of district attorney generals, and so there are things that they get together and discuss, and things they're concerned with. So how about telling us a little bit about that, about your organization?
Well, we have a Tennessee District Attorneys General Conference. There were 31 DAs for our 95 counties. We have an office in Nashville, Capitol Boulevard, and we deal with the legislature. We deal with all law enforcement across the state. We are united. We are some Democrats, some Republicans, but when you get into our job, it's non-political. We take care of each other. If someone has a problem in Memphis, we join together and try to take care of that problem. We're a close group of individuals. I happen to be president of the conference this year, and we'll be dealing with the legislature on anti-crime issues. We've been working very closely with Governor Haslam and his office. The Commissioner of Safety, who Governor Haslam looks toward on crime initiatives, is Bill Gibbons, a former DA from Memphis. So we have a good relationship with the Haslam administration, and hopefully this term we'll have some legislation that will benefit the crime victims and the people in Tennessee.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, as I mentioned in the beginning, we want to talk about the justice system from a national standpoint. And the rub behind that is that our system seems to be harsher than anybody else's in the world. We have 3 times more prisoners than any other rich country, and most of them have a lot fewer than 3 even. And we have 5% of the world's population and 25% of the prisoners, which I mentioned in the introduction. So altogether, and for those who seriously work on this issue, it sounds like a pretty dark picture. And one of my sources identified 3 flaws in our system, 3 big flaws. One was that we put away too many for too long. We criminalize too many things. There are 4,000 crimes in the federal statute, and a whole slew more by regulation, that so many that nobody can even count them. And a lot of things that are not criminally related as we normally think of it, but are rather environmental, immigration, business rules, and things of that sort. So it's a very, very complicated system, and it's so big that it's kind of unpredictable as well. So how do you react to that? It sounds like that your business has grown a lot in recent years as well.
Absolutely. Like I may have said on the air, I don't know, but when I first began, we had 2 assistant DAs for 4 counties, and now we have 6 assistant DAs for 1 county, and we are busier now than when I started as an young assistant back in '75. It is expensive to house people, but the people that are confined are people primarily who've committed violent crimes for which there is no parole, major sex offenses for which there is no parole, and also for people with lengthy criminal records. First offenders, unless they commit an extreme violent crime or a major sex offense, they don't go to prison. We try to keep people out of prison because the law says that we have to take into consideration the prison space. That's all over the country. And we do. And people who would have gone to prison back when I started in the '70s do not go. You have to have a lengthy criminal history usually if it's a non-violent or non-sexual offense. So when people commit the first offense, they typically do not go to prison. Now we do have, in our local jail, we have to take care of, we have to take into consideration our jail population. I think we have a capacity of 193 right now. Typically there's 230 to 250 people in that jail. It sometimes goes up to 300 or more. And wow. There are times when people cannot go to jail, even though in our opinion they deserve to go to jail because they're repeat offenders. And there must be some deterrence. A first offender commits a misdemeanor, he doesn't go. He's probably on diversion. But if they keep keep committing these crimes, that's the only deterrence that we have. There must be consequences for these repeat offenders. So it's not like people commit the first offense and go. They really have to work hard to get into jail and prison, typically. They have to keep committing crimes to go. But it is enormously expensive. And some of the people we put in our prison in particular, these are people that if they're out, they're going to be shooting, stabbing, robbing, burglarizing. They're people who are just not going to obey the law, and we have to put them in prison. That's the only way we can protect the public. And we have a lot of people that just seem to enjoy harming people, killing people. So we have to do that to protect the public. It is expensive, however.
What's happened over the last 50, 100 years? It didn't used to be that way. is this we're talking, I guess, about an overall social problem, moral problem.
Of course, we have a bigger population now than we had in the past, but I don't have an answer to that. There are a small group of small percentage of people in our county and all across the country who are violent people. It has something to do, I guess, of their home life when they're raised. I have seen in my some 38 years of criminal prosecutions, seen sons and grandsons. It often is a family situation.
Yeah.
Their fathers and grandfathers committed criminal acts. That's the life they've known.
Okay. Folks, we need to take a short commercial break, and we'll come back and go some more.
Hi, Grandma. It's Jake. I'm calling to tell you I love you more than anything in the whole wide world, even ice cream. I love you more than spaghetti and meatballs. I love you more than snakes and monkeys and sharks and whales and praying mantises. Bye, Grandma. Love you.
Let it all in with Charter Phone, including unlimited local and long-distance calls.
We're back, folks, and we're talking today with District Attorney General Mickey Layne, who is presently covering Coffee County. And we are talking, though, however, on the criminal justice system, or the justice system in the overall sense, because it's a major problem all over the country. Numbers, for example, we spend $8,000 to $10,000 a year, the state does, funding a college enrollee, $8,000 to $10,000 a year, and it costs us, I thought, around $25,000. Mr. Layne just says that Tennessee, it costs somewhere a lot more than around $45,000 to house a prisoner for a year, $45,000 a year. So obviously the money that's going to that is not going to something else, like education. And we were just getting into the fact before the last break that it seems to have grown seriously in the last 2 or 3 or 4 decades. And one of the reasons for that is the declaration of war on drugs that we did a number of years ago. And that's been so active that now half the prisoners in the federal system, at any rate, are there on a drug charge of one sort or another. So our war on drugs, as I say, we've spent $1 trillion on it over the last 4 or 5 decades, and don't seem to have anything to show for it except more prisoners.
But I think we don't know how bad the situation would have been had we not incarcerated these major drug offenders. You have to be a major drug offender, typically hard drugs, and you have to be a repeat offender to do significant time in our prison system. People who are involved in the drug trade, so often they're addicted to drugs, and so often they commit crimes to get money to buy the drugs to sell, then make a profit off the selling of the drugs to support their own habit. But these people who are addicted to drugs are typically commit crimes to further their business, robberies. We tried a case just recently where there was a person addicted to drugs that committed a murder so he could acquire money and other money and a car and property to go trade for drugs. I mean, that's what happens if you become addicted to drugs. you're going to rob, steal, even murder, commit burglaries, thefts, forgeries, worthless checks, steal credit cards. These people that, while they may be incarcerated on a drug charge, they're likely to be criminals
of criminal nature other than
in
drug
other
addiction,
offenses.
yeah.
So, and there are times when we believe there are people committing these violent crimes typically, that if we can get them on a drug charge, we will do it. And when they're locked up, they're not committing crimes. So while it may say a drug offense, but they may also be armed robbers, murderers, and those who commit thefts.
Well, and I know this debate goes on all over the world, and it's particularly hot here. But the question keeps cropping up whether we're going too far in criminalizing drugs. And I notice, for example, now we've got, I believe, 2 or 3 states at least that have legalized the private use of marijuana, of pot. And so one of the solutions to that that's been discussed over the years is to do just that, to try to experiment some with legalizing drugs and see how that works out. If we could make it an over-the-counter situation where you go in the grocery store and or the drugstore and buy some pot instead of having to buy it off the street, that it would be a lot better control than we have now.
But I think if you make it more accessible and cheaper, you're going to have more people using these drugs, and there are going to be more impaired people driving on our highways. There are going to be more accidents, more people killed on the roadways. If they become addicted, you say marijuana, but marijuana is believed by many people to be what is called a gateway drug, where you advance to harder drugs. So it would seem to me making drugs more accessible and cheaper is just going to result in more people using those drugs, and with the negative consequences on the roadways, consequences at home, consequences in the workplace. So it's our position by law enforcement that we do everything we can to deter people from using drugs and to limit their access to drugs.
Well, there are 2 things that have shown us something. We tried to criminalize the use of alcohol back with the Prohibition era, and that served no purpose other than to raise an organized crime problem of substantial nature, and so we finally repealed it. And now, of course, we still have problem with people drinking alcohol, but at least it's a bit more open, and so are the treatment areas.
But I think law enforcement's position would be that the private cost would be great if we did legalize drugs. Some of these drugs are extremely addictive. Some of these drugs, I'm not talking about private cost. I mean, talking about people becoming addicted, people becoming impaired, driving a motor vehicle, committing domestic violence at home, people going to their workplace impaired. So I think we don't know how bad it would have been if we had legalized drugs. I think we prevented a lot of people from accessing drugs and becoming addicted. I think there's a large segment of people in this country who, if it's illegal, they will not violate the law. You go to my church, Trinity Baptist Church in Manchester, and that's what we're taught, that we need to obey the laws of man, and if the law says this is illegal, we're not going to do it. So I think we can legislate morality to some extent in this area.
Well, legislating morality is costing us a bunch of problems these days. Well, as you say, and of course the advantage of decriminalizing it is that you can save some money for putting them for paying for their prison sentence for the use of treatment areas. And
That's
so, as they say,
that's true. But what I have found is that so often treatment is not effective. When people become addicted, it's quite common for them to be fighting that battle every day for the rest of their life.
Oh yeah.
Many years ago, I chewed tobacco, and my wife, who's a nurse, says, you know, this is dangerous. It could cause cancer. So I quit. But every day, I would love to have a chew of Red Man Golden Blend, but I don't do it. And I know the hold that drugs has on people is greater than my Red Man Golden Blend tobacco.
Okay. Well, that, folks, guess what? We've run out of time. We're going to have to take a short commercial break and wrap up.
Mark, you've won just about everything there is to win in racing. What's next?
I'd like more people to know about ER Extra.
The emergency room at Harton Regional Medical Center?
I just want them to get the best care they can get.
That just gets me right here, Mark.
Maybe you'd like to pay them a visit.
ER Extra at Harton Regional Medical Center.
ER Extra. Extra fast, extra easy, extra great.
Get your news first, fast, and free with your news leader on 6 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Local weather, sports, community calendar events, and a comprehensive look at the latest news stories and news makers as only a video news broadcast can do. Get it first, fast, and free with News Leader on Channel 6, your local information network.
We're back, folks, and we have been talking today on a very interesting subject with a lot of controversy and a lot of money involved, and that is the justice system in the overall country, not just locally. And we have seen that there are a number of causes of that. The war on drugs has resulted in our prison population now being 50% of them being related to drugs. And it's hard to deal with the fact that we have 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prisoners. So, I don't know. We don't have an answer, do we?
Well, these people only go to prison if they commit these violent crimes or if they have lengthy criminal histories. I don't know. First offenders typically don't go to prison unless they commit these violent or major sex offenses. So I don't know what else you do. While these people with lengthy criminal histories, for example, while they're in prison, the public is being protected. That's the only way we know to protect the people. If they're not going to act right, former Judge John Rollins used to say, "You need a do-right pill," and we don't have do-right pills.
At the end of the day, you know, maybe this comes back to an overall social problem and moral problem in the country. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us, Mr. Layne, and thank you, folks, for inviting us into your parlor, and we will see you next time.